miles out from the bowling alley.
What's your name?
Robin Doan. My parents are Michelle Conrad and Brian Conrad.
Robin Doan lived with her 35-year-old mother, Michelle, 31-year-old stepfather, Brian, and 14-year-old older brother, Zach. A family of 4 lived near the small town of Pampa, Texas, and their home was located in a secluded area with no other local residents or any infrastructure nearby. 10-year-old Robin's stepfather was a successful farmer. Her mother was 6 months pregnant, and they all took care of their beloved pet dog named Molly. It was an ordinary American family that made plans and was happy in its own way. On September 30, 2005, at about 3 o'clock in the morning, all family members were sleeping in their rooms. The house was dark and there was complete silence. Suddenly, a woman's scream was heard in the mother's bedroom. The scream uttered by Michelle Conrad was drowned out by the loud bangs of firearms. A girl sleeping in bed in another room woke up from terrible sounds. Robin jumped up and squatted near the slightly open door of her bedroom. She heard several louder bangs and then saw a man dressed all in black come out of her mother and stepfather's bedroom and head towards her. The girl, hearing heavy footsteps along the corridor, jumped up as quickly as she could, lay down on her bed and hid, covering her head with a blanket and pillow. A few seconds later, a stranger entered her bedroom, holding a firearm in his hand. Then 2 loud bangs were heard, and Robin felt something whiz past, but she was not hit. However, Robin made a hoarse sound and lay down on the floor, pretending to be motionless. The man in black left Robin's room and went into the 3rd bedroom, and where at that time the girl's older brother Zach was in his bed. 3 pops and Zach's wheeze were heard in the room, and then the stranger walked into the kitchen. All this time the girl heard an unknown person fiddling around in the kitchen, after which the noise stopped and the man left the house completely. For a long time, Robin remained motionless and silent, and only after 2.5 hours did she think that she could finally get up and go out. When the sun began to rise and the girl was sure that the stranger had left, she went into the living room without checking the bedroom, where she took the family phone and ran out to the driveway near the house. It was a cold autumn morning. Robin feared the worst and she dialed the police number. Robin told the dispatcher about the horror that happened in the house almost before her eyes, and the dispatcher sent the necessary services to the Conrad farm. Sheriff's Deputy Chad Brooks was one of the first to arrive at the address. A 10-year-old girl, wearing only pajamas, stood in the driveway. She ran up to the patrol car, and the sheriff's deputy hugged Robin. The girl was very eloquent. She tried to tell everything in the smallest detail about what she saw and heard. The law enforcement officer had to check all the premises, so he left the girl in his car and headed towards the house. The east door to the residence was damaged. Brian, Michelle, and Zach were lying in their beds in different rooms. They showed no signs of life. The police who arrived at the scene inspected the area and all premises and collected possible evidence. Experts were able to find several prints of men's shoes and several tire tracks of an unknown vehicle on the territory, but not a single fingerprint was found anywhere, and not a single trace of DNA was obtained. Valuables in the house, as well as cash, remained in their places, so detectives had to look for another motive. The police quickly established that the family had no ill-wishers, and the Conrad couple were respected among local residents. Who and why committed such a terrible act was completely unclear. However, detectives realized that a stranger, dressed all in black, had entered the family's home at night through the back door. First, the stranger went to the master bedroom, where Brian and Michelle Conrad were sleeping at that time. Brian was the first. The man in black used a firearm. Molly's dog came running in response to the noise in the room, and she was next. Michelle also woke up from loud bangs. The woman let out a scream, and the stranger used a firearm again. When silence reigned in the master bedroom, the unknown person went out into the corridor and headed to other rooms. First, he went into Robin's room, where the girl was lying completely covered with a blanket. The stranger did not understand that he missed while leaving behind a witness. Then the unknown person went to Zach's room. In the end, the man in black went to the kitchen, and then left the house, got into the car, and drove away. Fear among local residents began to go off scale. Many people were worried that someone was walking along their streets who could actually enter their house and do the same thing. One of the sheriff's deputies received information that on the eve of the incident, from a certain Scott King, his son Levi opened a gun safe and took a firearm without asking. A day earlier, about 500 miles from the Conrad farm, in a rural house located in Missouri, the body of 70-year-old Orly McCool and his 47-year-old daughter-in-law Dawn were discovered. Orly McCool also owned a cherry Dodge Dakota pickup truck, and the man's car disappeared without a trace. A ballistics test showed that the weapon used was consistent with the one that disappeared from the Scott King safe. After a ballistic examination, investigators came up with a suspect. It was 23-year-old Levi King. Law enforcement agencies knew the young man well. He had previously been sentenced to 14 years for taking someone else's property and for irreparable damage to someone else's property, but the guy spent only 3 years in a correctional facility, and then he was sent to a rehabilitation center. After some time, Levi King escaped from the rehabilitation center. The same Dodge Dakota pickup truck, owned by Orly McCool, was entered into the general police database as a wanted vehicle, and in the meantime, Levi King drove to the town of El Paso, where he crossed the border into Mexico, but for some reason the guy decided to return at night in the USA. He was detained by U.S. Border Patrol officers, who, during an inspection of his car, discovered a weapon. After El Paso police officers fingerprinted him and accessed his database, they saw that he was wanted for questioning regarding an incident in Missouri. Finally, when a group of detectives arrived from Missouri, literally 15 minutes after the start of the interrogation, Levi King confessed to his crime against Orly McCool and his daughter-in-law. 2 weeks later, King told a sheriff's deputy that he had also committed crimes on the outskirts of a small Texas town. The young man explained his actions by saying that he was angry with his father, who kicked him out of the family home in Missouri. Having appropriated the Orly McCool car, Levi King entered the regular highway, number 40, and planned to get to Mexico. But at some point, during the night, the man decided to get off the highway and, looking around, saw in front of him a farmhouse belonging to the Conrad family. In April 2008, Levi King pleaded guilty, agreeing in a plea deal to 2 consecutive life sentences to avoid capital punishment. The defense did a very good job of portraying Levi at the trial as a poor, curt, sad little man. In addition, the guy claimed that he had previously been diagnosed with a number of disorders. A year and a half later, a jury sentenced King to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The consequences of that night, September 30, worry the now adult Robin. When she enters her house, she always checks all the rooms to make sure that there is no one else there. The girl still cannot sleep with the door open because it seems to her that the figure of a man in black is standing in the doorway.